Hello and welcome to the Fullerton College Printing Technologies Department. This is Professor Ben Hewitt. Today we're taking a look at how to create a die-cut jack-o'-lantern greeting card using Adobe Illustrator to be cut on a cutting device such as our ESCO Kongsberg 5 plotter table, or potentially with a simpler at-home thing like a Cricut or a Silhouette. It could also work with, assuming you're able to convert your files over to those in other software. So here is the template page for the 12 by 18 sheet we're going to print on. And here are the features of the page that are going to matter. You can see, looking at it, we have 4 guidelines at a 1/4 inch in from the edge of the page on all this. If I hide those, you can see that I've created 4 registration points that look like little pluses in each corner. That is the registration system that our plotter table at school uses, and that's how we're going to line up our cut to our print. I'll turn those guides back on. There we go. So you can see them. That is on the layer. You can see in my layers menu down here that we have multiple layers. RegMark is a registration layer, and I call it RegMark because our cutting system recognizes that name and will automatically assign it properly when we go to use the cutter. So RegMark we leave locked and visible. Below that we have our crease layer. This is going to be for the fold in the middle of our card. We'll get to that when we do it. Inner cuts will be, let's just call it the face of the jack-o'-lantern. Smaller cuts from the inside of the page get cut first, and then afterward, we use outer cuts. I guess I should go back and explain this. Every single layer that I've built into this template represents a series of commands that we're going to give the cutter table. You separate those out from layer to layer. So we have a layer for registration, a layer for the folding of the paper, a layer for the small cuts, and a layer for the big cuts. And at long last, at the bottom, we have a layer for artwork. This is going to be the graphic that we actually print. Now, fair warning, I am using the 2020 release version of Adobe Illustrator in this video. And as I've tested this on our school campus, some of the older versions, like the 2015 release, don't like the artwork that I'm using and would require some modification to the video in order to function. Mainly in their handling of how gradients are applied, but let's get there in a moment. So let's head on over to the pumpkin patch and pick one out that we want to use. That is in the supplied pumpkin.ai file, and there are 3 different pumpkins you can choose from. I'm going to choose the middle one. The top one is not the best because the die cut can't actually do those crazy, actually the cutter can, but you'll just shred the paper if you try to cut those little curly cues. So if you choose that one, maybe we'll use that one anyways. You click a few times to enter isolation mode till you get just the pumpkin. See, just the pumpkin. I'm going to copy that, and we'll go back onto the die cut page and paste. With photos and things that actually, I pasted out into the wrong layer. Let me cut one more time. Make sure the artwork layer is selected and paste onto the artwork layer. From here, we can scale it. Remember, if you hold shift, you get a proportional scale. If you don't hold shift, it won't be proportional. Given that these are pumpkins and they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, so long as they're vaguely round, it doesn't actually matter if this is stretched or not. Normally, I'm a stickler for scaling images without stretching, but for this project, honestly, choose a size and shape you like. This is gonna be a bit of a big pumpkin that I'm doing here. So there's one copy of the pumpkin. Now, this is only one side of the card. Let's go ahead and make this graphic be the front and the back of the card. We hold down Option, that's Alt to you Windows users, and Shift. Well, click and start dragging, then hold Shift to make it move straight. I'm going to drag this right on over to here. So the 2 pumpkins are touching, slightly overlapping in the middle. I'm going to select the left side that I just moved and go up to Object, Transform, Reflect. Choosing the vertical axis sets it to flip as if the mirror that's reflecting it is vertical, and I'll flip it like this. Now I have 2 pumpkins that face each other. I'm going to select the one on the right and Command Shift right bracket. That's Control Shift for you Windows users, right bracket, to bring it to the front. That way the front one's on top. Next, I will select both pumpkins and group them. And then I'm going to center them using the centering commands. I'm going to align them to the artboard to the center. I might as well do the other center as well, just to make sure they're in the middle. Printer accuracy is better at the middle of the paper when you're running digital anyways. Cool. This is what we're going to print. However, we're not done. So I'm going to select this whole thing. I'm going to copy it, Command or Control C to copy, lock the art layer, and we're going to go to the outer cuts layer. In fact, I'm going to disable the visibility and turn off the artwork layer so that we can see what we're doing. I'm going to paste in place here, which is Command for me, Control for you Windows users, Command F to paste in front. And that puts it down precisely where it was picked up from. So these will line up exactly with what's on the layer below. Now, I'm going to use the Pathfinder window to glue these things together. This is where the project can fall apart if you're using a different version of Illustrator, because how they handle these particular pumpkin graphics that I supplied, they alter a little bit. And the older versions can't handle the newer versions of gradients, and that can cause a problem. If that's the case, you'll have to pen tool around the outside edge of the pumpkins, and that'll be how you create your die line. But here's the cheater method. If you go to Window, Pathfinder, mine's already open, and you select this one in the top corner called Unite, that will glue everything you've selected into one single continuous shape. And if you want to double check what this looks like, you can see what the computer's seeing, because this is a preview for us humans. If you go to View Outline, the outline is actually how the computer sees what's going on in Illustrator. And you can see that mostly it's a single line. There's a few little stray marks in there. I'll grab the white arrow or the direct selector tool and click on each one of those little stray marks that's inside, because we don't want to cut those out. Remove these little things to make it a much cleaner project. There we go. We'll go back to View Preview, which shows us the way we want to see it. This is a cut layer, and industry standard on this is a black outline, no fill. So we made the stroke black with no fill. If we turn on the artwork layer again, you can see, toggling that on and off, that it fits the outside just neatly. Hooray. Some of you may be saying, hey, we need to add bleed. And yes, you could do that. That'll be on the artwork layer. You can add some extra color, orange behind it to make sure you don't get any weird white gaps when you cut. Moving on though, we'll turn this off because we don't need to see the artwork. It's in fact distracting. We're going to lock the outer cuts layer because we're done with it. That was it. That's all the outer cuts. Let's jump up to Crease real fast. And for Crease, all we need to do is take the line segment tool and draw a single line segment vertically through the center of where the pumpkins meet. Standard, this should be red as a red stroked line to show that it's a crease line. Although I'm sure now that I've said that, someone will tell me they work at a shop and they use gray or blue or something. Most of the time I've seen red as crease, just saying. But you know, it's what experience I've seen. I'm limited by what my career has crossed paths with. That's a long explanation to say the line is red. Make it red. Just do like I say, and nobody gets hurt. Anyways, that's actually a safety statement, not a threat. Har har. So we'll use that red line as our crease line. Lock crease. We're done with it. Don't need any more. Inner cuts. On the inner cut layer is where we're going to do our cutting, kind of like if you were actually going to carve a pumpkin. I don't know that everyone has done this in their lifetime, but a lot of people here in the US have at some point carved a jack-o'-lantern. And the reason I'm having you do this as an assignment in a printing die cutting class is because a lot of the same logic about what works and what doesn't when you're carving a pumpkin is the same thing as when you're cutting paper on a die cut system. You need to have some form of attachment to the greater paper or else it doesn't hold. You can only cut so thin before things start breaking. All the constraints that you're running up against when you're trying to cut a really cool pumpkin is the same constraints you run up against when you're trying to do a good die cut on paper. So yes, that's right. I'm forcing you to manually create my analogy. Isn't that great? Okay, I'm going to select a black stroke for what I'm about to do, and I will use the pen tool and attempt to kind of freehand. You don't have to, but you can do a simple jack-o'-lantern. To the eyes, we'll do them as triangles. You can do the nose as an upside down triangle. Yeah, freehanding straight lines is nothing. And then we'll do a mouth. And that would be an acceptable jack-o'-lantern. We can move the pieces around a little. Actually, I might make the nose a little more symmetrical, move that in. There we go. And that would be a functional pumpkin die cut. If you turn on the artwork, you can kind of see where it's going to cut. You know, that'll make a decent jack-o'-lantern. But, you know, I'm not satisfied with simple. So let's make this a bit more complicated. I'm going to drag in an image onto this layer that I'm going to delete later, and we can trace on top of it. Sticking to the theme of all my projects, here's a B25. Now, you'll notice my photo is huge and my paper is small. So I'm going to really do really quickly here is I'm going to move outer cuts on top just to rearrange the layers order. I'm going to move inner cuts below outer cuts. That way we can see the outline of the pumpkin so we know if we've gone too big. I'll move the plane a little bit lower and we'll work from here. So let's grab our favorite tool, the pen tool, and we're going to trace an outline around this plane. I'll do this as quick as possible so I don't waste your whole video with me tracing an airplane, but this is a pretty quick little thing to do. The pen tool is your friend, and when you start die cutting, the pen tool means you can die cut any shape you can pen tool, or that you can draw with this thing, is a shape the cutter can do. Obviously, there's a little bit of learning with what the, we'll see if that actually functions. That may or may not actually function as a shape on the actual cut there. Again, any shape you can draw, the plotter can plot. The only question comes down to, can your paper survive the cutting? And I like tracing airplanes, not just because I like them, but because they were drawn originally using the same type of Bezier mathematics that makes the pen tool work. So the pen tool is ideally suited for tracing these, and these are ideally suited for tracing practice, just because all those curves are the right types of curves that this is trying to emulate. Hooray. There we go. Slightly curved there and up to there. Cool. It's not the most perfect trace in the world. If I delete the fixture though, you can now see that I have the outline of a B25 on my pumpkin. And that's pretty much it for the main set. We have our outside cut, we have our inside cut, we have our crease, we have our artwork that we're going to print. We can always add some bleed space by just adding some color behind that. Really quick, I mean, you can just select one of these oranges and you just, let me make sure I'm on the correct layer, draw an ellipse that covers behind it. That way, if the cut's not exactly right, at least it's orange and not white that's gapping, right? That's pretty good. Okay, one more thing, if you want to overachieve, we're going to lock all our layers except for outer cuts for a moment. We're going to make the inside of the card, the back, to print on the back side of this page so the inside of the card looks cool. Here's what we're going to do. Lock everything, unlock outer cuts. Then we're going to go to Document Setup, Edit Artboards, hold Option or Alt for you Windows users, click and drag, Shift is a good idea too, to move the entire artboard. Oh no, hidden and locked objects won't be moved. That's actually the plan, guys. Okay, that's good. Now we've moved only the outline of the pumpkins over here. That's going to let us know what we're going to do on this side. So we can go back to artwork. And in fact, those circles that we drew would not be a bad way to do the inside of this. It could work like that. It would just be an orange inside. But if you want this to be cool, we're going to select from the swatches. There's even a default swatch that'll work for this project that's orange and yellow. So in your swatch menu, go down to the orange-yellow gradient. Oh, guess what? I'm set to stroke. Whoops, let's swap that around. There we go. Much better. Make this like this. Now, this doesn't look that great, but if you go into the gradient type and you choose the radial gradient, oh, it's still on the outline. Come on. That's why. The radial gradient, you can now see that it starts in the middle and glows outward, like, I don't know, a candle and a pumpkin. And from here, we can adjust. I'm actually going to get rid of the darkest parts. I don't really want them. So the yellow starts in the middle. We kind of slide the different pieces around until it glows the way we want. And you know what? If I do that one too, I'll just go ahead and do this to here and send it behind. So there you have it. Save this, and this is a pretty good die cut pumpkin. The last things we'll have to do is save it two different ways. So first, we'll save our printing copy. The printing copy, we're going to lock the artwork and we're going to turn off so you don't see the cut lines. We just want to see the artwork and the registration marks. We'll do a file, save as, pumpkin-print. And we're going to make this a PDF because printers love PDFs. Save. Cool. Now we're going to do a second save. Do a file, save a copy, or save as. That's fine. File, save as, pumpkin cut. I often put this in all caps, so it's obvious. This wants to be an AI file because my cutter likes an AI. If you're doing this at home and you're using a Silhouette or a Cricut, use an SVG. That is a much better, more universally accepted file. But I know that the Kongsberg unit in our lab likes AIs. Bear with me. I know this video is going a little long, but we're almost done. So we'll save that. Okay. Now we're going to take the artwork layer and we're going to hit the trash button to delete it. We don't want that. We're going to turn on outer cuts and inner cuts. The next thing we're going to have to do, though, is we have to get rid of the second side of the page. Die cutting systems can't understand the idea of a front and a back. They just need a page size and a cut. So we're going to go back to Document Setup, Edit Artboards. We're going to select Artboard 1 copy and delete. And lastly, we're going to go to that outer cuts layer and so the wrong button going on here. Select that and delete it so that everything we have is on that one page. And this is your cut file. This will be the file we take onto the cutter to do the actual cutting after we printed the other one. All right, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this was a helpful video. I can't wait to try this in person with you guys. Thanks, and until next time, bye.